Back at it like two addicts. The pastor.
You are a professor too.
Yeah.
And Professor G. Joel.
So look, man, we want to pick back up on this whole notion of the violent theme in Django in light of
You've been watching too much Django. The violent theme or the theme of violence?
I said the violent theme.
You sound like you're off the plantation.
I am.
Yeah.
Fresh off the plantation.
You look it. Who gave you these duds?
so the whole goriness of it, and this is a trope in Tarantino's work, but I mean, part of me is saying that it should matter today. I'm not a proponent of extinguishing some artistic freedom, but I do think that artists have a certain type of social responsibility. So to a degree, I'm torn because I appreciate the authenticity by which he tries to describe this, and then I'm also thinking of so many people in so many different places who are subject to gun violence, and then now we have new laws and legislation that is on the table trying to discuss whether or not we should the whole Second Amendment argument. And all of this stuff.
Niggas been dying for years, so how
could they blame us?
Like Pac said. I look at it like you shit. They didn't have no Django in the Revolutionary War, and the Civil War, and Vietnam, and Korea, and Iraq, and Afghanistan, and Bosnia Herzegovina. America's about that. I mean, and not just America. I love my country, but nations in general. No powerful nation, China,
no
Korea,
empire rises without violence.
Both North and South Vietnam. Yeah, they
every
do. That's
empire
part
we
of
know
it.
used a sword. That
That's
is
part
true.
of it. So I'm not gonna knock that, but this can't be slavery. Can't be sanitized, and it can't be devoid of violence because look what it was. In essence, when you look at what happened with. When he goes at the end of the movie, for those of you all that have not seen it, hopefully you have by now. If not, go see it. Quentin, if you're watching us, come give us some money for this show.
Send a tithe to Abyssinian Baptist Church because we pubbing your stuff.
Or Wells Fargo Bank 4737. That's me. But the violence, it can't be devoid of violence because the institution of slavery was so violent. If anything, what Tarantino has done, and there's an argument that black director like Spike Lee, I think he could be possibly mad, or any black director might not have been able to get away with positing a black hero that murders whites that deserved it, allegedly, if you're going to say an eye for an eye, okay? If you're going to have an Old Testament God or an Old Testament God type of mentality where vengeance is his, then this is what happened. But you can't devoid anything in this time frame, antebellum South, right, of violence, because I would say, I've never been killed before because I'm here in front of you all at the pastor and the professor, but I think I might rather be shot than the dehumanization. I mean, well, not just the physicality.
Eaten by the dogs.
But the male and female forcible rape, right? Of males and females and all that and others. So what he has done was the violence in that movie, first of all, it's rated R for a reason. But the violence in that movie, it's appropriate because the institution was built upon violence. The only way you can't make nobody work for you just because I think you're better than me. I'm scared of you. That's different. But the violence is the last barrier of it, that you can be harmed, you can be castrated.
It is the glue. The violence is the glue that holds it all together.
It is that.
This is something ironic. Sister Roberta Byrd highlighted the fact that in light of the violence, and that's my addendum to her comment that she shout out to us on Facebook. It is ironic that there is no scene of the barbarity of rape.
I just mentioned that.
And I think that is an ironic thing because and see, this is where we wish we had a sister to chime in, and give their perspective. And I'm thinking of so many different sisters who I'm sure have fantastic takes on this, and I'm not gonna call one just for the sake of leaving one out. And then they say, well, why didn't y'all call our name? But I think that is an important thing because that is left to the imagination. See, with the goriness of it, the violence, the gun brutality is not left to the imagination. We hear it, we see it, we even feel it. But this whole notion of the rape element of it, which is very important because that also is used to sustain that unjust and oppressive system of slavery, not only in the sense that you are dehumanizing people psychologically, but you are using their bodies to breed people.
Jessa, let me jump in there, Jessa.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, what I gotta say is, as a literary man, a lit man, that goes without saying. know that was happening in there. And the the instance in the movie when Dr. King Schultz asked, "You have this gal who speaks German." Mm-hmm. We know that Calvin Candy, in essence, prostitutes his slave women, the attractive ones,
and probably doing something with his sister too, man.
Yeah, that too. But that right there shows us that you don't have to be punched, kicked, slapped, choked to be raped. The fact that you have to entertain these men sexually with your body,
but don't you
by force? That's in essence, we know that this is part of being a black female, the black female body on the plantation, right. And that scene does it. He didn't have to go there with that.
I disagree.
I don't think he had to go there with that. That right there told it all.
Shouldn't that argument be consistent in terms of all of the violence then? All of the barbarity.
Was not necessary?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I'm saying if you're going to go there with the gore of it all,
go ahead and go show the rape.
I mean, you got to go. I think the same way that I've argued in sermonic form, that being willing to deal with the goriness and the funkiness.
The what?
Funky.
There you go.
Funkiness.
All right.
Not to suggest that I would not go there, but the funkiness and the bloodiness and the nastiness of it all is what it takes to redeem and liberate and unchain us oftentimes. I think the same ought to be said for those sisters who have had to deal with that psychological, physical, and emotional barrier.
I think he was trying to get that R rating. Because you look at Roots, you look at all the different spin-offs of Roots, your Roots, the Gift, the Queen, the old where you pick the slave gal up and lift her skirt up and get behind her real quick. Like that was that's bar understood. What I was saying is that's bar understood in the instance when she comes out of there nude out of the hot box. And then Dr. King shows her, go clean her up and bring her to me. We all know that this is an obligatory sexual act because he was supposed to meet her there to have sex. This is going to be one of my fun girls for the night. And I didn't have to get paid. He's not going to pay for her because he's patronizing Calvin Candy's Mandingo warrior trade, Mandingo fight trade. So I don't think that was necessary. And plus, we got to look at, he tried to get everything in 3 minutes. But yes, he could have done that. But I think for sake of the R rating, I don't think Tarantino could have done the rape scene justice without making it to be what is it?
X-rated thing.
What they call it? Is it 17? NC-17 or
the mature
audience? Yeah, like he would have to go hit that upgrade from the R to not even an X because if he's going to show the gore like this, he's going to have to show the true rape, not the clothes pulled up, the literal rape of it. So I think he alluded to that in literature we call that subtextually. We already know this goes on regular. Right. With whoever somebody says they like, I like this gal, this goes on. So,
and it makes me think about what another one of our Facebook homeboys commentated, who comes to the show from time to time, Chris Walton, and he brought up the whole notion of the Mandingo wrestling. Yeah, because that is, I mean, that is
eroticism.
Yeah, and not just that, but that is, I mean, the whole tenacity of that thing.
Especially at the end when he gets it.
That's what I'm saying. So he goes there with that. Yeah. And so I mean, but I can support that argument about the whole the rating thing. That's something.
It can be a terrible. Slavery is terrible to tackle if you really look at it. All the black brothers and sisters, white brothers and sisters that have actually written about it and tried to delve into it, as far as the nuance of their academic studies or what have you, and research, or is it historical or social. Slavery is a very problematic thing because we're one of the few people that, the black American, are one of the few groups of people that, the old Malcolm X, when he was on talk show, they asked him, why does he hate white people? And he says, that's like asking the sheep, why do you hate the wolf? We're one of the few group of sheep that obtained our liberation, or were liberated via something internally that made us become liberated and obtain our freedom, but we still reside on the same land or the same home as that wolf. I'm sure people that are smarter than me will come and tell us on Facebook, but we still reside in the same house where we endured those abuses. Think about the Amityville Horror. Mm-hmm. If you can get out of that, let's move from this house. But we still live here. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to address. And I'm not going to knock my white brothers and sisters, and even those that are oppositional to me and my opponents and those that are my enemies. I can understand why it's hard for them to deal with it because they happen to be have the aesthetic. They're the aesthetic
consistency
of the oppressor.
Yeah.
So that white privilege they really don't understand, and they don't want to deal with it, and most blacks don't want to. So this is a hard thing to deal with, and for this white man to do it is great. Quentin Tarantino done is great, and it's been done before, but not like this with any blacks. People talk about Buck the Preacher, and you can go through all your black exploitation films where the nigga hustler, the black hustler, whether he was a pimp, a drug dealer, or just a cool dude, or a cop like Shaft. I'm talking about the Mac, Shaft, Superfly. They did it, but they was in an urban setting and in a modernized setting. He's rewriting, they call this revisionist history, and all the historians, and that's what he's done with this fictitious tale, because we know 1858, the Civil War hadn't even begun yet, right? And he mentions in 1858, the Civil War begins in 1860, and he mentions in 1858, like what do you say, 2 years after the Civil War, or during the Civil War or something in the movie. So he's fictionalized, he's revising history just like he does with Inglourious Basterds.
Look, we're going to shift gears one more time, but we're about to take a break. So when we come back, we'll really get into this crazy and talked about and even in some instances celebrated sermon series that I have been sharing with the
Django Unchained.
It's Jesus Unchained.
Jesus,
brother.
I'm
Jesus
sorry.
Unchained. But y'all hold tight for another quick second so we can get some more shout outs and we'll be back.
And go get your slave figurines.
Yeah, and send us the proceeds.
Yep.